So I would suggest we start. Good morning, everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this joint webinar, which is organized jointly by EEIP, the European Tracking Service Association, and PensionsEurope. And this is a side event of the European Retirement Week 2025. So I'm delighted to see so many of you joining us this morning. We had more than 110 registrations. A few are still joining, but I would say the level of attendance is pretty good. And I think this is because we are going to discuss a very topical issue that is increasingly central to the future of our pension system, rethinking how we communicate about pensions. For those of you less familiar with the European Retirement Week, this is now its fifth edition, actually, and is an annual event that takes place in the last week of November, and is a kind of unique moment when 14 associations from across Europe come together to raise awareness about the importance of retirement planning and to stimulate an open, forward-looking debate on pension adequacy and sustainability. The purpose of the European Retirement Week is clear. We want to help citizens understand why saving for retirement matters, what their options are, and how they can make informed decisions throughout their working lives. And in that sense, today's event, I believe it goes right at the heart of the mission of European Retirement Week. We all know that communicating about pensions is one of the biggest challenges in our sector. And this is because pension systems are inherently quite complex. For many individuals, and I think especially for younger generation, pensions feels distant, abstract, sometimes even intimidating. But yet the choices people make today will shape their financial well-being decades from now. And this is why clear, understandable, and accessible pension information is not a luxury, it's really a need. It enables people to plan, to engage, and ultimately to trust the system designed to support them. So today's discussion focuses on how we can improve that communication. We want to explore how the sector can better meet citizens where they are, on the platform they use, in the format they prefer, and with messages that resonate. And I think digital tools are already transforming how information is processed and personalized. They can help bring pension information closer to citizens in a way that is intuitive, engaging, and relevant. But this is not just about technology, it is also about trust, strengthening the relationship between pension providers, policymakers, and the people they serve. If we want citizens to engage more actively in planning their retirement, our communication needs to be meaningful, transparent, and adapted to the diverse realities of Europe's workforce and pension systems. We are very fortunate today to be joined by an excellent group of speakers. We have experts in research, experts in communication, but also in practical implementation. And they will be helping us to reflect on what works, what doesn't, and what the future of pension communication could look like. We will hear insights from academia, learn from concrete experiences on the ground, and explore innovative approaches that could reshape how our sector interacts with the public. And I want to sincerely thank all the speakers for their participation. And I would also like to acknowledge the excellent cooperation between EIP, the ETS Association, and PensionsEurope in organizing this event. And I believe our collaboration truly reflects the spirit of European Retirement Week. We work together across organizations and perspectives to strengthen pension awareness and adequacy for all people in Europe. So with that, I'm delighted to officially open today's webinar. Thank you once again for joining us, and I look forward to a rich and inspiring discussion. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Matti Leppala, Pensions Europe Secretary General and CEO, and he will be moderating the first 2 of the 4 sessions we have today. Matti, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simone, and good morning, everyone. And thanks, everybody, for the good work in preparing for this. It's my great pleasure to welcome our first speaker, who's Dr. Lisa Brüchen. She's the Executive Director of NetSpar, so a very important Dutch institution in pensions, but she's also a professor at Maastricht and Tilburg universities, and a great expert on communication and behavioral aspects of that. So Lisa will have a few slides, a short presentation, some really interesting points on communication, especially in relation to younger people, whatever that means. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Over to you, Lisa.
Yes, thank you very much, Matti, and thank you very much for inviting me. Indeed, the topic of pension communication is very close to my heart and close to my research. And Matti, I look forward in engaging in a discussion with you a little bit later. But I thought I bring a few research insights that are maybe interesting for what we're discussing today. Because what I've learned is the focus not only on communication, but within communication, especially also the challenge of how to reach the younger people. I should say that the term young in a pension world is an interesting one and should probably be well defined, because we can mean rather different things with, who is young in here. I will briefly share my screen with you, so that you can see some of the results that we found in our research. So the first graph that I wanted to show you is from a paper in which we actually study the login rates from members from a very large Dutch pension fund. So they have an online portal in which members can get their personalized information. And one of the most relevant pages in that portal is the Plan Your Retirement page. And we plotted here the age and how many people basically log on into this page. And what you can quite clearly see is that especially the ones close to retirement that are logging on, and that the share of younger people is actually really low. So the information is there, it's freely available, but it's not really used that much at younger ages. Then another research study that we did, it's a little bit more in the context of the Netherlands, where we are moving, transitioning towards this new pension scheme. And we did a nice research study in which we informed people about what the new scheme will actually entail. And if you've ever conducted research, you probably know that normally you hardly get responses in open-ended questions. Often people just say no, or no response, or no idea, or don't even fill it in. But in this survey, we got lots and lots and lots of reactions from respondents, which was really surprised to us. So we coded all of these responses, and we generally in that paper also found quite different segments in general, but we also split it up according to age. So we looked at the attitudes, emotions, and beliefs that different age groups actually have. And here it's quite interesting because you do see that the younger ones, and in this study was defined as below 34 years, they're actually more optimistic and more positive about pensions, and in this case also in particular the pension scheme. So that was actually a rather interesting finding to us. For communication, actually also something you can work with. Then maybe more conceptually rather than empirically. And actually, 2 weeks ago, we had the Pension 3 days in the Netherlands. It's sort of a Dutch variant of the Retirement Week, I guess. So 3 days where lots of employers and pension providers try to generate a lot of attention for pensions. And as part of that initiative, I also invited all employees of Maastricht University for an event, and we told them a little bit more about the New Touch pension scheme. And what you really see there in the reactions is that for younger people, it's a little bit harder to really motivate them to think about old age retirement because it's really far away, right? Then you have a present bias kicking in, self-control problems, all of these behavioral mechanisms that we know by now that make it difficult to get people to think about retirement. However, there are certain life events that do make it much more relevant to look into your pensions also at a younger age. For example, starting a new job, right? That's often a moment when people get lots of information from an employer, and it would be an ideal moment where an HR professional could also tell a little bit more about the retirement planning. And it's often a moment that's not really used sufficiently. I like to tell this anecdote that I had once had this employment benefit talk with a new PhD student of mine, and this hour was almost over, and we went through the bicycle schemes and holiday allowances and everything that the university had to offer. But pension was not mentioned at all. And towards the end, I then said, okay, but he will also build up a pension. And then the HR employee said, oh, right. But by the time you will retire, who knows what will be left over? And I was really like, oh my God, she did not just say that. So she really missed an opportunity and actually probably achieved even the opposite. So I think there's so much room to better tie into these live events and use that to connect to young people. Also the moment when someone gets married, because most pension schemes also have the survivor benefits, right? And that's relevant in the here and now, because you do want that your beloved ones is taken care of when something had happened to you, right? So this, I think, is also really underexploited aspect of pensions that could make it much more meaningful for young people to look into this. What gets a lot of attention in the Netherlands at the moment is also if you work less or if you take over care responsibilities. Often that affects women in particular, and they often just look at what does to their monthly income and not to their retirement planning. So I think there is so much room also for broader initiatives to really better inform and engage younger people with their retirement planning. And a very nice example of this is one that was actually recently a finalist in a very important award in the Netherlands that's also handed out during these 3 pension days. And this award, I think the award in itself is already great because it encourages all the pension fund and providers to submit their initiatives to engage and activate pension plan members. And one of the finalists this year, for example, specifically targeted young people. So they opened an TikTok channel and worked together with a TikTok influencer who made educational, very engaging, very nice, but factually also correct and interesting little videos. And they measured then what that does to the coming back or to an engagement. And they found quite interesting results. So for the last videos, even 69% of the viewers came back to watch more of the videos. And the engagement was, I should say, engagement intentions, but still the viewers were significantly more likely to seek pension information. So it really triggered downstream behavior and also led to a perception shift. So a very interesting research study that I think shows that there's lots of potential. They did find, though, that the content does not necessarily transfer to other channels. And I should also say, I think it should be done well. I'm not sure if I or other experts would do such TikTok videos that they would necessarily work. I think it's really important, of course, to really get the language and the style that resonates with the audience. But I think there is lots of potential. In the Netherlands, we have also an initiative called Pension Lab. So that's a lot of young people interested in pensions. They do all kinds of activities. They also have an educational program to educate young people so that they could become board members in pension funds. But they also wrote a very nice report and came up with very specific recommendations. It is in Dutch, but Google Translate hopefully would do the job for you. And I took out the key recommendations from that report. And the first two actually align quite nicely with what I've just said. So relate to these live events. And use modern communication tools and formats. What they also mentioned, and I think that at least I know the numbers for the Netherlands, and I assume that's also in the rest of Europe. There are, especially in a lot of startups, many modern organizations, small organizations don't necessarily offer pension schemes, or also many young people work as self-employed. And that's also really important, so of course, that there are good value for money products for them. And the last one I find also extremely interesting, that relates to governance. And that's really also what they have in their mission, so that they really try to get more younger people into the boards of pension funds, because we obviously all bring our specific background and our biases and experiences to the table. And I think it would really benefit diversity and also hence downstream results if that perspective has a much bigger say and much more leverage in the decisions that are taken. And why there are now lots of educated young people in the Netherlands, I've recently heard them also call this sort of youngster washing. So a lot of pension funds say we want young people, but they still have a challenge in really getting these board seats. I think there's also still room for development, and that could also really help in the communication later on. Now, the last slide I want to show relates a little bit to a Dutch tradition. In about a week, it's Sinterklaas, St. Nicholas, and you may know that that's a very important day in the Netherlands, much bigger than Christmas, for example. And one tradition around Sinterklaas is that people write each other poems. And these poems are a little bit teasing and touch on something that's you wanna highlight. And so I figured, especially for today's event, I make a little poem, admittedly with the help of ChatGPT, but that highlights what I think is one of the biggest challenges in pension communication, and that is our love for jargon and very strange abbreviations. And I think if you read the poem, and I will leave it on the screen for a bit, you see all these terms: LDI is rising, ALM is reviewed, DB, DC, CDC, funding ratio, replacement rate, COLA, IORP, EOPA, PPI. We say make it simple, but then every week another term appears. It's almost a code. It works well for all the experts here, words that exist here. But yeah, it's our world and our ocean of acronyms. And I think it's really time to change something about that. And Matti, with that, I give it back to you, and I'm curious to hear your questions.
Thanks, Lisa. Excellent stuff. I mean, to start with the optimism of young people in the Netherlands, what do you think that is? I think that's not in every country. Why are the Dutch younger people more optimistic? And how should one benefit from this? You said that communication should use it, but how then to benefit from this starting point?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I should say that one explanation could also be that the older ones became more negative over time. Of course, in the last decades, where pensions often didn't receive indexation, didn't rise with the inflation, where there were also specific changes. Quite some older people do remember this or have seen this a little bit more actively, and that I think also really influences their attitudes and emotions towards pensions. So I think one effect that we see is really vis-a-vis the more negative older people. But I also, and I should also say, so often you look sort of at these percentages, and these are often aggregate views. You obviously also do see a lot of heterogeneity in there, right? So that's also something to mention. But of course, I think also young people, they do realize that a solid financial situation is not a given, in contrast to most of us, I assume. They did not necessarily grow up in the times of economic growth and prosperity, and often this generation understands that they may not necessarily fare better than their parents. And so if they have a good pension scheme through their employer, I think they also really see the value of this nowadays. I think it's good. And then the transition to the communication. We also once did a framing experiment where we had exactly the same information, but it only differed on 4 headings. And we used the gain frame and a loss frame in line with prospect theory. And there we also saw that actually the way you word the information can really make a difference and can really get more people. So that experiment, we had a 3 percentage point difference between these different conditions. So I would really say the pension providers think carefully about the wording that you use and do pre-test, because it's probably different in cultures and different settings and different contexts. But I think a lot can be gained also in really watching which exact wording you use.
Mm-hmm. I mean, your first slide highlighted the fact that younger people really do not seek information. They don't engage, but older ones do. How important do you see that this would be younger would be more active, and what challenges would that bring for these trust and the emotional aspects of the future pension, which is far away for young people?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So I think the overarching question is really, what do you solve through the scheme design or through the institutional setting, through the laws that are in place, and what do you solve through communication? Because if you, let's say, you're, the completely paternalistic setting where you just say, by law and we mandate and, everyone contributes 20% or whatever, then there's maybe not that much need for communication, because people are well protected. And even if they don't look at it at all, they would have a great retirement income later on, right? But the more you deviate from this paternalistic perspective, the more important is communication. So in the Netherlands, we have been quite paternalistic, but of course, even, there things have changed, and the situation nowadays is different than in the past. I think what you would expect people to do really depends also on the institutional setting and what is meaningful in every country. But even in a country like the Netherlands, where for employers with a decent pension scheme, the basis is arranged rather well, I think you at least would want them to log on once a year just to check, am I on track and how are things going? Did I really register my partner for the survivor benefit? These little hygienic checks, that's maybe sufficient when you're young, right? You don't necessarily need to engage all the time. But in that study, we had a time frame of 13 months and a bit, if I recall correctly. So I would have expected at least one login during that time.
There's a question. Thanks. There's a question in the chat, which I think is a relevant one, highlighting the fact that in the Netherlands there's a big gender pension gap due to the labor market structure, I would say, for the most part. But then the question is there any specific national communication activity to mitigate this issue? So informing basically women about the situation and the outlook. If they don't do anything, they will have smaller pensions. How I understand this issue.
Yeah, I love this question. So, most of you know on an aggregate level, the pensions are ranged really well in the Netherlands. But if you look at the gender gap in particular, we have one of the largest in Europe, 40%. That's huge. And much to my surprise, so when I became director of NetSpar, it's a topic that I find also really important. So I checked, okay, how many studies did we do on this topic? One. There was one study on the topic until that date. So what I also try to do now over time is to try and initiate much more research on this topic, because I think we need to understand better not just the components, but also what we can do about this. And for example, what we see by now is also there was also very nice research done last year by MoneyWise, the platform from the Ministry of Finance in the Netherlands. We did a research study together and also handed it over to Queen Maxima, who has a mandate on financial health. And one thing is, of course, it's an employment related aspect and a salary related aspect, but often for these, if you take care responsibilities, that you don't think about the downstream effects of this. So, for example, I think there is a huge responsibility also with employers to inform their employees that, hey, you know, take the decision that you want to take with respect to your working hours, but just understand, just know that will also affect your retirement. I think there is a lot to be gained. What we also there are also some platforms, for example, like Women Inc., and they have been also quite successful the past years in trying to raise a lot more attention for this topic through a variety of mechanisms, from social media or regular media to organizing events, to being present in talk shows, and really making this a topic to be discussed. Because and I should say, this is also part of a research project that I have just started up. I don't know really the effects yet. I can tell you in a few years from now, but my expectation is, my hypothesis is that we should communicate differently. I think jargon has a bigger effect on females than on males, and a few other aspects of communication could work differently. And I can't wait to start I can't wait to start with the research.
Thank you. And in one of your slides highlighted the importance of these life events that are important, like marriage or divorce, and I'm sure having children who stays at home and all of this, and maybe then the communication could be like just in time communication in relation to these events. Yeah. Maybe we cannot drop these formal required by legislation annual information, but that's something else than effective communication, right?
Yeah, and I think it's really an area where I would like to see much more progress. I think pension funds could really collaborate much better with employers, because employers, we know from lots of research that employers have a much more trusted and warm and close relationship with the employees than a pension fund. And they also often know much sooner and much better when certain life events occur. So some pension funds, they have very nice communication packages or websites for the employers, where they really hand them very good and very simple materials, and really they did all the work, and just say, hey, but if the live event comes, you know, here, this is what you need to discuss, or at least give this flyer, or, you know, do this. I think there's really a lot that could be gained if there is a better communication and collaboration and information provision through the employers.
Indeed. And you also mentioned many other things which we unfortunately don't have time to discuss, but like the language, the jargon, the governance issues, these are really fundamentally important, and thank you for highlighting those. So thank you, Lisa. We have to move forward in the program to our next speaker, talking a bit about same topics from the German experience point of view, and so handing over to Hans-Jörg Mülleleile, or introducing Hans-Jörg. Hans-Jörg is the chief executive of Metallrente in Germany, and you have done, and not for the first time, you have done a survey of young adults on pensions and savings, and there are interesting trends and developments, and some of them really relate to what, for example, Lisa said, the last remarks about the trust in employer and what impact that has on younger people. So you also have a few slides. So over to you, Hans-Jörg.
Thank you, Matti. Thank you for having me. That's such a great opportunity to speak in the European Retirement Week, and welcome to all of my colleagues here in the Teams meeting. And you're exactly right, Matti. I was listening now very closely to Lisa, and I'm very happy that we find here some connections in the slides between Netherlands and Germany as well. And I'm also quite honored, Matti, that I will be presenting here in the academia round and not in the practice round. That's such a great honor. And a nice thing for this study that we do, like Matti says, for 15 to 16 years now, we conduct a study every 3 years since 2010 with like 2,500 young people that we address via an academic institute every 3 years with several questions on pensions, on savings, and on financial education. And we just conducted this study this year. So this is pretty new results that we started to present since October. And I'm happy to present you some slides out of it for the matter of discussion. So don't worry, only the title is still in German, the rest will be in English. First slide, we, from a broader perspective, ask young people how do they view their financial future as a person and as a society. And this year we have quite some interesting results from the German perspective on financial future as such. So we asked them, you personally as a young person between 17 and 27 years old, do you expect to have a decent standard of living and will be able to afford what you want or need? And this trust in own financial capabilities is now declining in Germany since 2016 from 85 to 62%. Still higher than one could probably expect, but it's a decline for several years that we observe now. A very concerning one that we also ask people since 2010, the simple question, will you be able to afford supporting a family or want to found a family? We see significant doubts on the rise. So this was a minor thing in 2016, 15% did not expect to be financially be able to support a family. In 2025, it's already like 39%, which is significant. We also asked them in the context of solidarity versus individuality, how do you expect your role in the society in the future? And we have now also first time since we do that study a rise in young people that particularly say, I will safeguard and concentrate on my own interests because nobody else does, which is quite a harsh statement in a political context. And we see a slight rise in the need for financial security, in being financially healthy. Young people start to say, I will save as much as possible to be financially stable in the future, which is also quite significant when you consider that the persons that are asked here are starting 17, 18, 19-year-olds. I certainly would not have answered that question, being 17-year-old, that my main focus is being financially stable in the future. The saving habits of young adults, very briefly here in this context, good news is 80% of the young adults that we asked are already saving. Quite a lot of them even regularly, but even more of them also at least now and then for different purposes. That might be long-term saving, it might be short-term saving, it might be saving for a vacation, but it might also mean saving for retirement. And this is the right side. 54% of the young adults are already saving for old age. Again, being 17 to 27-year-old. We might politically say that is a low figure, but realistically said, I would still think it's a pretty decent figure when more than half of the young adults in that age already save for retirement. Very interesting one. How do the young adults invest for old age? What is the vehicles? And what do they expect from these? Slide move. Does it? So we see now since 2019, pretty much with the middle of the pandemic, there's a significant rise in young people now, particularly using stock markets, ETFs, funds, neo-brokers that quite coincide here with the fact that 2019 the big ones like Trade Republic or Scalable went to a broader public under young people. So while stock markets and ETFs and funds have been a niche, still to 2016 under young people saving for retirement, we have seen now tripling in 2025. Oh, sorry, I get a message. Is something wrong with the slides, Matti? Which slide do you see?
I see the slide with the ETFs and others. Yes, what you are covering right now.
Okay. I'm sorry. I think some of you do not see the actualized slides, but yeah.
It seems to be fine, Hans-Jörg.
Okay, thank you. And we still see with 40% pretty stable occupational pensions being the product of choice or the way of choice for young people in that age to save for retirement. A very particular German thing is the gray line. So the subsidized private retirement products in Germany called Riester that are particularly designed for low-income workers and also for young people, usually not earning that much money. The subsidized private retirement products are on a steady decline in Germany since we started to ask in 2010, and now to be considered more niche product with only 17% of the young people, particularly using subsidized private retirement products. Interesting one also for communication as a point for discussion afterwards. We start to see a closing of the gender gap in using stock market products for the retirement savings. So female are not only closing up to their male peer group in using stock market, they are already a bit faster now closing the gap between 2022 and 2025, which seems to mean that there might be a way with communication and with comprehensive showing of products, there might be a way to close the gender pension gap with regards to using at least the stock market related products, because this rise is quite significant. Also, nearly a bit more than half of the female asked persons between 17 and 27 already use stock market related products for retirement saving, which was quite a surprise in this study. Here, big slide for what Lisa talked about. Who do young people trust in old age provision? Who do they trust in communication and in getting to action in saving for retirement? And in Germany, it's now the first time since we conduct the study that the employer is on #1 position as the most trusted institution when it comes to saving for retirement. The first time since we discussed the study, we see a slight decline in the public pension system, which might be related to the very polarized discussion at the moment in Germany on the future of the public pension system. But nonetheless, the trust in the public pension system is still there, but it's now the first time on the second place, right behind the employer. Also surprising result in the study was that young people here on the third position, they do not only use funds, ETFs, and shares to save for retirement, they also trust them. That was a big surprise to trust an anonym platform, an anonym company with safeguarding your interests in retirement planning. And private institutions like banks and life insurances are for a lot of years now say stable in the trust. They do not lose that much trust. They also do not gain trust with regard to young people in safeguarding their interests in retirement planning. We ask them also regularly, what do you consider the ideal setup for a pension when being 17 or 27 years old? And it was a very encouraging result that the huge majority of young people say a pension, that must be a lifelong payment. It's not a lump sum. It's not a drawdown plan. A pension is a lifelong payment. That is a good and ideal pension setting. They also value mechanism to safeguard the contributions. That does not mean exactly something like guarantees. It can be several sorts of mechanisms. The point is they have to be credible and they have to be reliable. Every young person who wants or is able and willing to save for retirement expects that this is not a speculation model. They expect it to be a reliable model for saving for retirement. And they also expect a good increase in value, which I think resonates with the fact that young people like to work with stock market products also for retirement. And for communication, I think that's of no surprise to anybody here on the call. Online access to account and self-service is important for young people, and it's probably even a given when addressing them with communication. The ideal framework, and this is my last slide, for financial and information and education, that is an important topic to us, Murray, that we can also discuss further with regards to our other European member states and Germany. Germany has, that's a fact, has no sort of financial education in school whatever for young people. And this is something that young people address massively at the moment. So 87% of them, male and female alike, education alike, say saving for old age must be part of a dedicated school subject, economy and finance. And that's a major point. When I was 17, I would not have voted for more school. So I'm even more impressed that there's such a broad consensus about all this young generation. People say we need more school education in finance, economy, and especially also in old age provisions. They also have a strong stance on having aggregated and accessible access to pension information over all three pillars: occupational pension, private pension, and public pensions, at least when they start entering the workforce with 85%. That's a strong vote for having such an independent channel for getting information. Where do I stand at the moment with my savings for retirement? And I think that resonates with something that Lisa said. They expect us to have something like social media dedicated information and communication on relevant information on old age provisions. They just expect it to be independent, and they expect it to be official. So like licensed channels, be it from the government, be it from pension institutions. But they expect to be addressed in the world that they live in. And this is, like it or not, also social media. That was some brief slides for the matter of discussion.
Thank you very much, Hans-Jörg. It's really interesting and really valuable that you do this on a continuous basis regularly. That I'm sure this provides really the opportunity to see the trends and also what changes impact the attitudes and the behavior of people. And I would also say that it is quite high number that 88% of the younger people in your survey are already saving, and many of them also for retirement. But also what you highlighted is the fact that younger people really then use stock market for their savings. And what do you think the pension providers should then learn from this fact in their own actions?
That's a good question. So I think that the fact that they use like specific ETF platforms is not a vote against pensions providers or not a vote against occupational pensions. It's just the thing that's the best and the closest thing in for them to do in that particular phase of life. What we can learn from the providers that like the platforms like neobrokers, I think what we most can learn is the fact of communication. The way that they communicate makes savings accessible in real time. A view on that, it's happening in the world that young people live in. That does mean social media, but it does also mean digital, real-time digital accessibility. And I think that is something that the savings providers or the stock market platforms have learned, and pension institutions probably not so much. Pension institutions like myself are still living in a world where we say once a year is enough to see what's happening in your pension fund. It's a long-term investment. We look at 30 or 40 years of savings, which is on a technical level true. On a technical level, it's irrelevant of if this year your account goes a bit up or down. But on an emotional level, and financial education and financial understanding is also a lot about emotions, it's absolutely not irrelevant. So I think that is the point that we should learn as pension institutions from other providers that we see.
Also, one important point that you made is the expectation, the ideal pension that younger people expect, lifelong income. How far is the present pension system in Germany in this respect, or does it fulfill this expectation? So is it true that people who expect this and wish for this, that they can actually get this from the pension system?
Yes, can do. That's a specific element of occupational pensions. So it's possible to get also lump sums or withdrawal plans from an occupational pension system, but the core element of an occupational pension in Germany, also under tax law and under subsidizing rules for this kind of pension, is the concept of a lifelong pension. So I would be able to boldly say that the occupational pension system in Germany does exactly deliver the core elements that young people want and expect from additional pensions.
So I'm sure that is a good basis for communication from the pension funds then, when you can promise something that you can actually deliver.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. There are many other topics like the financial literacy, education, all of this. There are also European actions just recently taken. So this is an important part, and encouraging to hear what you said, that and surprising that young people want to have more education on this. So we cannot, unfortunately, continue our discussion on this topic, but thank you very much, Hans-Jörg, for excellent information and presentation, and for joining us, and we'll continue at another occasion. But now it's my pleasure to hand over to Simone for the two remaining topics in our webinar. Over to you, Simone.
Thank you, Matti, and thank you also to our speakers for their very insightful presentation. As I mentioned in the beginning, the goal of the Retirement Week is to raise people awareness on the need to save more. Although from what I'm hearing now from Hans-Jörg is maybe the case to say, also to say that they should save better. And a powerful tool in this respect are pension tracking systems, which are online platforms which can offer individuals an overview of their pension entitlement and projected benefit, ideally across all different pension schemes and providers. And by enhancing transparency and pension awareness, these systems help to encourage citizens to take informed decisions about their career, retirement, and savings. And for the next 20 minutes, we will be focusing exactly on that. And I'm delighted to be joined by Claudia and Nina, who will guide us through this topic. So Claudia Wegner-Van Schaffe is the chair of the board of directors of the ETS Association, which is the association who is currently developing the pan-European platform intended to serve as a central hub connecting the various national PTS across the EU. Thanks also to the financial support of the European Commission. And Nina Weber is the program manager of this project. So welcome both. And I guess there is nobody better than you to help us to understand how PTS and maybe more in general technological innovation can reshape the way we communicate about pension. So Claudia, welcome. I would maybe start from you. I guess that not all the people connected in this call are very much aware of what we are doing in the ETS. So can you maybe just introduce the ETS association and the project we have in place?
Yes, thank you, Simone, of course, with pleasure. But first of all, let me say hello to the audience, and also from our side, thank you to PensionsEurope and AEIP that we have such a good cooperation in the European Retirement Week. So it's always a pleasure to work with you. The ETS is an association of currently 10 organizations from the pension sector, cross-country and cross-pillar. We have brought a movie with us to give a short explanation instead of letting me explain everything. Maybe Nina, you can start. Maybe does it work, or shall I go on?
Now it's working.
Meet Andrzej from Poland. In the past 30 years, he has worked in 6 different European countries due to his dynamic job in construction. His wife Susanna works full-time in Poland, and together they have 2 children. The oldest just started at university. When Susanna and Andrzej grow older, they want to have a good retirement. Andrzej has different pension providers in 6 countries. When will each provider start paying out Andrzej's pension, and how much income will he have after retirement? Luckily, ETS helps Andrzej find all his pension providers, inform him on the different pension systems, activate him to get the pension he is entitled to. ETS, the European Tracking Service on Pensions, is an association of European pension organizations. The ETS platform, findyourpension.eu, supports Andrzej and the 10 million and more mobile workers in Europe who work or have worked in different European countries. This platform is important because pension isn't about numbers, it's about the people behind it. Take care of your pension. Visit findyourpension.eu.
Yeah, so I think it's always nicer to have this introduction, but maybe to add where we are right now. After having set up a pilot version of the European Tracking Service, we are now heading towards a connection of the existing national tracking services to make it possible for mobile workers to find, inform, and be activated to deal with their pensions. So that's our motto: find, inform, and activate. And again, to mention, the pilot as well as the rollout program of our platform are co-financed by the European Commission.
Thank you, Claudia. Interesting video. So mobile workers are somehow at the heart of the ETS. But I would say mobile workers are a very diverse group. The video is showing the case of a construction sector worker and a researcher. And clearly, these two kinds of people are completely different. So the question I have, how do you target the communication in a meaningful way for such a diverse target group? You have blue-collar workers, white-collar workers. So what's your experience within the ETS in the way in which you can effectively communicate about pension with such a diverse group?
Yeah, that's true. You mentioned one of the biggest challenges, of course, we have. And to be honest, I would say we didn't solve the problem like any other, but what we do is we build on the experience of our partners in the project, of really well-experienced statutory pension providers, as well as supplementary, and of course, not to forget the pension tracking services we have in our group, and AEIP. So that is one side. But in addition, when we started the pilot project before setting up the platform, we cooperated also with Professor Lisa Brücken, and I'm happy to see her again today. We worked out a communication concept, a kind of guideline that should help us to tackle exactly that problem. Because apart from receiving personal data, which is the part of find in our concept, users still need information on that, and they have to understand and to contextualize these data. So when adding the context and the general information, some main principles, for example, are using different entry points that address users in their personal situation. And that is what we already heard. So I think that is one of the most important strategies you can have. And at the same time, of course, addressing specific questions or topics which we in our work identified as the main pain points for certain personas we have used to meet at least the largest number of our users, possible users. And in addition, we are always watching, of course, what the Commission finds out about the mobility of the intra-European mobility, what kind of workers, what kind of groups do we have here. When drafting the general information, the first step is always to keep in mind that mobile workers are even more illiterate about a national pension system than the domestic citizens. And that is one key point. When you draft this kind of information, you cannot see it from the national perspective. We have international workers here, so they have a completely different perspective. And in order to reach the users with their different capabilities and needs, we are also using different layers and give simple and short answers in the first layer, but offer more info for a deeper search, as well as so-called good to knows, repeating main messages. So that are the three, dial components or elements we are using. And of course, in addition, what Lisa again, of course, said, avoid jargon. And that's for us as experts very, very hard to keep that. Another element is the concept to use the option to create a personal to-do list for our users and save their personal provider list so that they can act if necessary. But as we can imagine, this is a huge task, and a stable and strong cooperation is needed together with the partners to maintain and update the editorial part of our platform.
It is a huge task indeed. There is a question in the chat about how many people have worked in different countries in Europe. I think we talk about almost 7 million people, if I'm not mistaken, right?
We are talking about 10 million,
Even
but
more.
that is anyway, I really can recommend, maybe we can add in the chat later the link to the report, or maybe Radek can do it because I saw that he's present as well. Because it's really worth to take a look in that if you want to understand that. But what is important is that even if you have 10 million at the same moment when it's measured, you still have the other ones who are at home in between. So it's much more than 10 million if you count together the different generations who have been mobile. So we are talking about 4% of the workforce, but I tend to say it's much more.
So very relevant project. Now I would like to move to you, Nina. As project manager, you have been somehow investigating the use of AI in pension communication. Could you share with us a few of the main findings you had, please?
Yes, sure. Hello also from my side. So the very first thing or aspect which was interesting is that we all come from, all the participants in the group looking into the subject came from very different starting points. So there were those who are very far advanced in the usage of AI and their exploration on the topic. And of course, that's very helpful to exchange best practices here and learn from their experience. But also on the reasons and thoughts behind those who are more hesitant to implement AI. So both help a great deal for us. So it's very good that we have this opportunity that more perspectives come together on this topic as well. So the other important aspect is to really have a clear objective for using AI. So not just having a tool because it's kind of a trend right now, but really a targeted use of it. And also to, of course, check the risks at the beginning and be well aware of them and monitor that. So what we decided as an approach is to have a step-by-step way in our exploration of AI and usage of it. And the first step is really to minimize the risks and to analyze it for ourselves, to start with general information, so no personal information involved, and also no direct contact of the end user with the AI tool. So this is where we are starting. And as I said, the exchange of best practices and also thoughts behind all this in the group was a very great help on it.
Okay, work in progress then. I think this edition of the Retirement Week comes in a very good time this year. Just 7 days ago, the European Commission has released the so-called supplementary pension package. And this includes recommendations which also cover the pension tracking systems. So Claudia, I hope you had occasion to give a look to those documents. What do you think? Is there any recommendation that you would like to highlight? And is there maybe something that is missing from there, or where you were somehow expecting additional support from the European Commission?
Yeah, so regarding our goals, of course, we appreciate very much that the Commission mentions the work of the ETS and its necessity for mobile workers as a service and as an organization. So I think this is for us a very good confirmation. The goal of helping citizens to get an overview on the pension provision they have and where they stand or will stand in the future, I think, is a joint one. Nobody would put that under question. In recommending the member states to establish more ETS, this goal is highlighted again because For the ETS, such services and data hubs are the prerequisite to connect and find pensions. So the tracking part of our service needs more national tracking systems to connect with. And so we, of course, are happy with this recommendation. As we experienced in our work, sometimes user consent is not a suitable basis to send data from national tracking services to the ETS. It's very important to include a connection to the ETS in the concept and setup of national tracking services. And because then these things all can be taken into account from the very beginning, like, by the way, also EIOPA had mentioned in their technical advice. To conclude, in my opinion, the recommendation is a confirmation of the foundation of the ETS as such, and the necessary cooperation of the actors in the field of pension tracking. So that is more the organizational aspect, the acknowledgement of the need. And if you ask if we would have liked more than a recommendation, I don't know. I tend to say, with a view to the national competence regarding pension provision, and all people involved in the association work in pensions know about this discussion, maybe I think sometimes a recommendation can help even more, because if I think that we would start to discuss about competences and things also in regard of the ETS. And I think for us, it's better to show that, as I said, there is no discussion on the need. So why not work on this basis as an association and cooperate with all these national tracking services, who, by the way, also enjoy this work because they have an exchange, a frequent exchange with other services from different countries. And that is the other thing, that they profit from it. They do not only build something that is really helpful, they also profit from this cooperation. And that holds also true for all the participants, also the pension providers, when it comes to pension communication, learning from others. And that is what we also do with our forum on pension communication. So I think for now we are, so we will see how the discussion will go and the development.
Yes, you mentioned learning from others. So Nina, you talked about the use of AI made by the participants of the ETS association. So how do you think AI can be used in the context of the ETS?
So as Claudia described, we have we aim to provide tailored information for the target group mobile workers for a very complex topic, the pension landscapes in Europe, which are very diverse. And as Claudia already mentioned, it's a lot of work to manually draft those information. Also because you, of course, need experts for that. And experts usually don't have very much time and also might have other priorities. So we have a problem here in creating the content. Of course, we saw that in the pilot project as well. So we want to reduce the effort for those experts in creating the content. We call them editors in our system, and we want to have an editor assistant, AI-based, which helps create this information and draft it. Of course, still refined by an expert and also quality checked before it will be live. So this is really a tool for those editors, and we hope to generate more content with that and still maintaining, of course, the quality. We want to set a certain framework for that. So a list of limited sources to be used for the AI tool for this first draft of the texts, and also keep our content guideline, the findings of our content guideline. So the AI needs to implement the style and all the elements that Claudia mentioned here. And that's for our first step. And then into the future, we will carefully document the results, the quality of the results. We might also look into, at one point, decide to go into the direct contact with the end user, but that's depending on the results and also technical developments, of course. For example, with a chatbot, but maybe also to give more context, more tailored context to the personal information the user gets at the end. But that's for the future and to decide based on the results of the first step.
Thank you. So looking at the future, Claudia, what are the priorities for next year and maybe even beyond that?
Oh, yeah. That's hard to answer in such a short time, but looking at 26 and 27, and also maybe with regard to the time our rollout program is running, that's until 29. Of course, we plan to have more connections of national tracking services. So that is the first priority, because as I said, without that, we do not get the personal data we want to have. And here we are pretty happy about the development so far. In the first year, we had the connection of France already, and now we are working on Germany next and Croatia, and we also wait for the Dutch connection. So there's also a lot of work been done. So it is going on, and I think the more connections we have, the easier it will be to convince other pension tracking services to follow. But of course, that is not the only thing. We want also to make our ETS association stronger, so that we get more members here, that we keep the diversity of stakeholders in this group, and follow our goals also regarding the exchange, so that we have a broader community of supporters and contributors to the ETS goals across the entire pension sector. And then, of course, not to forget about the improvements, and this I hand over to Nina.
Yes, so definitely what Claudia said, to build new connections, to improve, to enlarge the coverage, but also look at our service as it is today, and evaluate it, and also take measures to improve it, to have really a user-friendly platform and access, so there's no hindrance in getting to the personal information or also the other functions on the website. And also look how we can achieve our goals more efficient, for example, with the AI tool, which I also explained.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Nina. A lot of work, I see, but with a dream of having 27 national pension tracking systems, maybe one day connected to the ETS. Thank you for this. Due to time constraints, I have to close this session and move to the next one. So for the next session, we have Anna Vinci, and I'll be having a chat with her about a major trend that is shaping how younger generation learn about financial matters. The rise of financial content creators, the so-called finfluencers. Their reach is, I would say, growing quite rapidly, and their impact as well. But this trend also brings important questions about trust, accuracy, and the risk linked to unregulated information. So to explore these issues, I am delighted to be joined by Anna Vinci. She's the co-founder of Ciao Elsa, which is an Italian platform dedicated to making pension understandable and accessible. Their mission is simple but powerful, turning complex pension concept into clear, practical information. So Ciao Elsa was founded in 2023, and I think in less than 2 years, their platform has built a remarkable community of over 200,000 followers on social media. So this is quite impressive. So I dare to say that Anna is a finfluencer herself, and one that has somehow succeeded in bringing pension education to new audiences. So Anna, thank you so much for being with us today. And maybe I let you the floor to explain to us a little bit the origins of Ciao Elsa. What inspired you to create Ciao Elsa? Did you see any particular gap in how financial information was being communicated?
Hello, Simone. Hi, everyone. I'm very honored and happy to have this opportunity to talk about pension and about the new languages around pension and how we are trying to have an impact on younger people, but on people in general. And I want to share my story. Or better, Ciao Elsa story that started from me because I became passionate about pension the day I realized I had unknowingly lost my money. Because like many Italians, I left my severance pay or TFR in the company without even knowing I had other options. No one had ever explained it to me. So when I left my job, I discovered personally that my lack of awareness, and I had a master's degree in economics and banks, I want to specify this particular, and that had cost me over 1,000 euros. And if I had just moved that TFR into a pension fund, I would still have that money and also the employer contribution I lost. And that wasn't a mistake, it was an information failure. And if it was happening to me, it was happening to million other people. So we started Ciao Elsa with a clear mission to make, as you said, hard pension topics easy and sexy, I would say, and to give people the tools to make informed, empowered choices about their financial futures. Regarding the gaps, we saw two major gaps, a knowledge gap and a language gap. Most Italians don't really understand how the pension system works, and when it is explained, it's usually wrapped in bureaucracy, numbers, and legal jargon. So we asked, what if we turned that into something human? And that's how Ciao Elsa was founded, not just a pension broker, but an educational platform. So we started by creating content on the social media, and those content had the goal to simplify the complex questions and to remove the fear or the shame people often feel about not understanding pensions. And to go one step further, we built a digital platform that lets users compare all pension funds in Italy, and in some cases even subscribe those pension funds online, through an experience that was designed with the same educational approach as our content. The language is simple, the flow is step by step, and every piece of information comes from official sources, so people don't just choose a fund, they understand what they're choosing. So our goal, again, is to turn a complex system into something clear, usable, and empowering without ever losing rigor.
Easy to say, a bit less to implement, perhaps.
Yeah.
So you have mentioned two major gaps, the knowledge gap and the language gap, which I think is a common gap, not only in Italy, but also in other countries. So what's your main target audience? And I guess it's mostly young people, but how do you tailor your messages to resonate with them?
Well, our audience is mostly workers aged 25 to 50. Maybe these are young people for the pension system. Even if I am 40, I'm really young for the pension system, and so is 50 years old in Italy. And especially we talk to employees in the private sector and freelancers who aren't enrolled in any pension fund yet, and have a big need of having a pension, a supplementary pension. And many people don't even know complementary pension exists in Italy. 2 out of 3 don't have a pension fund in Italy. Maybe they've heard about them, but never truly understood why they matter. So we go where they already spend their time. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube. We use simple, direct, sometimes also ironic language, because financial education doesn't have to be boring. We believe it can be engaging. So the goal, again, is to turn a pension into relatable stories. The fact to find something relatable is really important to engage people, and then to actionable choices, because you have to understand, but you also have to act and do something for your future.
You mentioned a number of social media platforms. In your experience, is there any of these platforms that works better than others? We heard from Lisa about TikTok, for instance. What's your experience on this? Is there anything that works better than others?
Well, the mix is always the best thing, but TikTok was actually where everything started for me, because the first video in which I explained how I personally lost those 1,000 euros because I hadn't informed went viral. So that moment changed everything. It made me realize how many people were in the exact same situation, and it gave me the push I needed to leave my job and build Ciao Elsa together with my co-founder Marco, that at that time was my colleague in Gruppo Generali. And so TikTok remains an incredible platform for reaching young people. It's fast, it's emotional, and it's great for storytelling and for viral engagement. But it's also where interactions tend to be more surface level. People so discover us there, they connect with the story, but it's not always the place where they go deeper. On the other hand, Instagram is our main home. It's where our community really engages with us, where they ask questions, where they follow our educational series, and where they interact through tools like Q&A boxes and stories. And it's our most effective platform for building a long-term relationship based on trust and clarity. Then we have LinkedIn, that is essential for credibility and for speaking directly with institutions, with pension funds, with companies and professionals who want to understand our mission and our impact. And in the end, YouTube, that plays a key role in delivering long-form financial education. It allows us to go in depth and explaining how pension work, the different choices available, and how to evaluate one's pension gap, giving people the opportunity to learn at their own pace and build real foundational knowledge. So we have different levels with the different social media, and every social media platform is a step in the path.
I see. If now I put my hat as a representative of institutional investors, one issue someone could see is how to balance influence and responsibility. So the question I have for you is, how do you ensure that the content remains accurate and trustworthy?
Yes, we take this responsibility very seriously because pensions are not just a financial topic. They shape people's long-term security and peace of mind. So every piece of content we publish is double-checked against official sources, especially Italian pension law. And our team is combining professional expertise and regulatory integrity because we are licensed financial consultants. We are qualified to work as advisors, even though we don't practice advisory services. And we also are certified insurance broker for the distribution of the pension funds on the platform. We are officially registered with the insurance authority in Italy, IVAS. And we are also certified financial educators listed in the National Register of AEIP. So we don't offer financial advice. What we do is education always, even in our paid session with workers or in the companies that call us to explain how TFR works in Italy. There we provide knowledge, context, and tools to help people make informed decisions independently. And this is how we protect both the accuracy of what we share and the freedom of choice of the people we serve.
Okay, so Ciao Elsa sounds as a very reliable source of information, but this might not be the case maybe for others. So what do you see as the main risk of misinformation in financial content today? And when I talk about financial content, I think I refer to both content, but also branded content. How can creators and regulators help to mitigate them?
Well, the biggest risk is, I think, oversimplification, because making things simple is good, but cutting too many corners for the sake of virality, no, that's dangerous. So it's really difficult to simplify, but not too much. And another big issue regarding the branded content is the issue with undisclosed sponsorships. So when creators share financial advice without disclosing it's paid, that breaks trust. And we also believe that creators should totally avoid taking on branded content that pushes products too aggressively, because ultimately these types of sponsored posts are not effective in truly educating the audience. And last but not least, they don't work. So I think that platforms and regulators need to act requiring clear labeling, defining ethical guidelines, and creating a culture of transparency without killing creativity. So it's a very always continuous trade-off between creativity and compliance and transparency.
Okay. And in this regard, do you believe that PIN influencers should have some kind of training or certification before sharing financial content? Because I was reading that in China, for instance, now it is a legal requirement to have specific qualifications in case you talk about finance.
When you are talking about pensions, money, and the people's future security, preparation, ethics, and respecting high standards are not optional. They are essential. So in a country like Italy, you see the Italy field, where financial literacy, I was saying illiteracy, but financial literacy is very low. The difference between helpful content and harmful advice often lies in the creator's competence. So that's why, in my opinion, form matters, not just in how you say things, but in who is saying them and with what kind of background. We've seen in Italy the rise of the so-called fuffa gurus or fluff gurus, a sort of unqualified figures who present themselves as experts using flashy formats, emotional hooks, and they do this to build trust, but only to spread misleading advices. So this can do a real damage, especially for younger or for the more vulnerable audiences. So yes, we believe that a minimum standard of preparations should be required for anyone creating financial content, not necessarily a formal university degree, but at least a proven knowledge base combined with transparency about financial interests or sponsorships. And at the same time, a recognized certification like ours can help distinguish those who commit to ethical and educational standards. It's not about, again, limiting creativity or voice. It's about protecting users in a space where the cost of misinformation is too high. And in the end, the goal is not just engagement, but it's responsible influence. So financial education should be clear, accessible, and also credible.
Now, looking at the, let's say, potential collaboration, potential innovation, do you see any space for collaboration between influencer and more traditional actors like pension funds, but also maybe regulators or association? And if so, how do you see a good collaboration could work in practice?
Well, yes, we should collaborate as influencers or educational financial platform and regulators, players, and traditional players and associations, because institutions have credibility, influencers have reach and empathy. So when you combine these two things transparently, there you are creating real value for the user. The problem today is that institutions still speak in formal PDF language, and but people live on social platform. So I want to share with you that in this context, we recently had the opportunity to collaborate as Ciao Elsa with INPS, so the Italian National Pension Institute, on a highly rewarding project for us. And it was challenging, but working together allowed us to create shared educational content, we were leveraging the startups' flexibility and speed on one hand, and HIMSS institutional credibility on the other end. So, well, I think that in practice, an effective collaboration between us as the co-creation as the key. Not scripted campaigns, but joint efforts to educate. For example, we can explain pension rights, we can simulate pension scenarios, but also we should show real life trade-off, like the TFR, in company or in a pension fund, the pros and the cons. But one thing is very important, that independence is non-negotiable. Creators must be free to say this option isn't right for everyone. And that's how trust is built and maintained.
Thank you. And yeah, I believe this use of PDFs is also due to regulatory requirement. Pension funds are mandated to provide their members and beneficiaries, yes, with a pension benefit statement. Conscious of time, I maybe have just one final question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to policymaker or pension institution on how to better reach younger audiences, what would it be?
Well, speak the language of people you're trying to reach. So don't just publish PDFs. Also go where people are, use short videos, interactive tools, relatable examples. The relatable is very important, because young people aren't disengaged because they don't care. They're disengaged because the system speaks a language they don't understand. So we have to flip the narrative. And I would finish with this thought. Don't ask people to care about pension. Make pensions care about people.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. And please share something about the European Retirement Week on your social medias, because I think you have a great outreach. And with this, we close also this session, and I pass the floor over to Matti for the conclusions of the day. And from my side, thank you all for participating and happy Retirement Week.
Thank you, Simone, and thank you very much to all of our speakers, Lisa, Hans-Jörg, Claudia, Nina, and Anna. Excellent information and discussion. I think the topic that we had for our session today, rethinking how we communicate about pensions, and with the emphasis on especially younger people, is really crucially important, because I would say that European pension systems will only remain strong and even legitimate if they are understood, trusted, and genuinely connected with the people they serve. And also very much this is true with younger people. And people and younger adults are far from indifferent of these issues. They worry about their future, their living standards, and the affordability of family life, and still they actively save, many of them, often more than we assume. And they want clarity and guidance and sense of direction. So they're not disengaged. They're navigating uncertainty, often alone, and with limited trust in the institutions that are designed to guide them. And that's why communication really matters, and not communication as we have always done it, but communication that meets the people where they are, in formats that they actually use and understand, as Anna, I think, really well highlighted, that you have the empathy and access to people. I mean, we heard about TikTok from Anna, from Lisa. I must say, my daughter some years ago saw that I was on TikTok, and she said, I have no place in being in TikTok, so I haven't been, but I'm on LinkedIn and YouTube. So yeah, these things are also important. We also heard about jargon, that it distances and clarity empowers. So the language we use, the terms that we use, they need to be understandable. And we also heard about technology, pension tracking systems, cross-border information like ETS, and the emerging potential of AI. And these tools can be really effective. A clear, real-time, personalized understanding of pension rights, and AI can really help in this. But always it has to be robust in governance and human oversight. So we should not trust AI further than we understand and can govern it. And finally, we reflected on the growing role of influencers, and Anna reminded us that people now learn about finance through social media before they ever hear from an employer or a pension institution. And this creates opportunities and risks. And the opportunity is to reach people in the language that resonates with them, but risk is, of course, misinformation. So in this, I would say the path forward is not to ignore this development, but to shape it through collaboration, as Simone, you discussed with Anna, transparency and high standards of accuracy. So the future of pension communication is not a technical issue, it is a trust-building mission for all of us. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and hope that we will have a great European Retirement Week 2025 and an even better in 2026. Thank you, everyone.